the session today is going to be very practical. We will make sure that you also get involved. So don't get worried of having impractical what? Solutions or ideas. So when you go back, whether you have sophisticated software or you're still analog in a way, you will still be able to implement this. Privacy has always been termed to be a future thing, but this is something we've always had as individuals, as organizations. Inherently, we want privacy, okay? But briefly, about us. Unwanted Witness, we've been around for close to 10 years now. Yeah, this year we'll be making 11 years. So we've been at the center of advocating for digital rights, okay? And we've done that using many ways and approaches. One of the ways that we've been doing is, of course, we are very strong at advocacy. We are very strong at research. We've delivered landmarking research. We've initiated and undertaken landmarking investigations, especially in the area of privacy. Privacy. One of the platforms that we are so proud of as Unwanted Witness, in line with data protection and privacy, is the Privacy Symposium Africa. The Privacy Symposium Africa is the biggest and fast growing data protection platform in Africa. This is a platform where we discuss issues, data protection, new technologies, and the relevance of the laws and how practical the data protection practices can be, embraced. More of, speak of privacy by design, or a culture of privacy, or a culture of knowing that someone's personal data is very important. As important as my phone, someone else's personal data is what? Also very important. So for more information about us, you can go to our website. We do more than data protection. We do digital ID, again, research, advocacy. We have platforms, freedom of expression, issues digital rights, majorly. So today, this training is very important to civil society organizations because many times data protection has been an idea that people think it's for the commercial side of life. Those who have businesses are the ones who should be interested in protecting personal data. Because think of it, who runs a business without personal data? When you want to acquire a SIM card, what happens? Acquiring a bank account. All those, they require you to state your name, your father's name. The other day I was renewing my passport, and they were asking for my grandfather's, where he was buried. They were asking, how many grandfathers do you have? Poor me, I only know 3. They were asking 4. Then I went for the interview. They asked for my mother's 3 grandfathers. At that moment I asked, why do you really need this information? And the lady who was interviewing me started teasing me to walk like a Muganda. Tambula ngo Muganda. Now I'm a Muganda, a proud one, but I can only go as far as my second grandfather. How I'm linked to the Kabaka, the story is a bit unknown to me so much. So basically this training for civil society organizations is very important because you as well collect personal data. You might not know. Some of you actually collect data that you think, no, it's not identifiable. I didn't collect someone's name. But when you piece together the different sort of data you will have personal data. You can actually identify someone from that personal data. Now, from your own understanding, before even we go into protection and all the legalese and the English or Zungu Lunji, what do you understand by privacy? Where's the mic? Personally, we can do randomly. What do you understand by privacy? Ngagwa omuntu, good one. You want your personal space. Good? Someone here? Privacy. Someone mentions privacy.
For me, I understand privacy because it comes from the word private.
Let me be alone.
Good one. Let me be alone.
See, I understand it as accessing information only when you're supposed to. In simple terms, minding your business.
Madam here has a hand.
Thank you. May I understand it being restricted area of operation?
Restricted area of operation. Perfect. Okay. All those are correct answers. Now, privacy, before even we go into information and whatever and our kind of work, the other day, one of our colleagues at Unwanted Witness, we had traveled up country. So the wife calls him and tells him, guess what? I'd gone out and came back and found the maid in her bedroom searching for something. Now that scared the wife the hell out of her. Now, according to, and I think this works for many families, how many of you allow maids to go into your bedroom? Housemates. And you allow them to go into your bedroom? Now, there are those families that allow. Now, this particular family, they don't allow a maid to enter their bedroom. The wife actually cleans the bedroom, and anything the maid needs, it's gotten out, and she picks it from the sitting room or outside the bedroom. Now, she had stepped out, only to come back, opening the door, and the maid was in their bedroom. Huh? That is scary. Very scary. What the maid actually did was infringe on the privacy of her boss. She was fired there and then. Okay? Now I'm trying to relate, to help us understand privacy. Before even we go into the legalese, Ruzungu Runji. Many times in our homes we have curtains. We have curtains. And you make sure that at night, they are what? Does it mean you're doing illegal things inside? No. All you're trying to communicate that binebiri munda kati byaffe. Abali wabuli bibasinga, correct? It's beyond your understanding. Some of us in our homes, we even have visitors that stop at the gate. There are those visitors that only stop at the gate, and you send a maid to go and inquire. Who are they? What do they want? And if they have any delivery, drop it there, go. Then there is another category of visitors. Those only stop at the compound. Sometimes those are even journalists. Anytime when a journalist calls you, hello, I want an interview, but it's a weekend, it's a public holiday, you're home, you don't take them in the house. Usually you get out a chair, komao. We'll do the interview from. Then there are those who come to the balcony, or the shed. And there are those who come to the sitting room. Now those many times are friends, close friends, relatives. So you see all these barriers you've put at your home. There are those who stop at the sitting room, you serve them, you laugh, and when time comes for them to leave, you escort them out. Then there are the privileged who even go to the bedroom. Those are also another category of what? But you know why you have that? Because you have a certain inherent need for privacy. Someone has said the ability to let someone in and out. We all need that. There is a movie there is a movie called The Fun. I don't know, I had a lot of movie fans here. The movie it's called The Fun. The Fun was about this American footballer. You know, USA, they love that football that is not the usual soccer. So this guy was so prominent. He would score so much. He was more of a Messi of that side. And definitely he had people who would adore him. Now he had this particular fun. Sometimes when we see people on TV, we get to think that they know us because we support them, right? And when you meet them, you talk to them as if you've even met. Sometimes you even feel offended if you reach out and he shows you this impression. Who are you? How can I help you? It's the same impression, this fan, when he sought to meet and have maybe a photograph, an autograph from this footballer. And the footballer asked, can I know you? Who are you? This guy had supported that team for over 15 years. In fact, in his room, he had painted his walls that gentleman. That shows you how much he loved. Huh? Those of you who grew up sometime a while ago, when that age came when mommy would give you a room, especially the boys, you know what we would put on the walls? We would put pictures of, there was a magazine called Spice. Who lived in those ages? Eh? You would cut out, me alone. Don't make me feel so spoiled. But we would cut out pictures of beautiful ladies, right? Or cut out pictures of cars. Because as boys are growing up, what they fancy are usually cars, beautiful girls, you know, those sort of things. So what this guy had done, he had cut out pictures of that player and pasted on his walls. So one day, when that guy felt offended, he said, no, I need to have a one-on-one with this guy and put sense in him. So this footballer, after a match, he goes home, closes the door, goes to shower, and enters the bedroom, only to find a certain gentleman on his bed. Who are you? What are you doing here? We met. I told you I'm your fan. I've come to visit you. How many of you would not freak out? Imagine you leave this place, okay? Go back home and find Gilbert. I'm just using it. And find Gilbert in your bedroom. Like, what is the training at Africana? That would freak you, right? So that is privacy, the need for privacy. We need our personal space. We need to have the power to dictate who comes into our personal space. Like you people, they're supposed to be friends, eh? But I know some of you will even want to be more friends than the normal. Then you will start asking for numbers. Eh? Then some cautious men or women will be like, whoa. Wait a minute. Why do you want my number? You know? You go on Twitter. We'll handle it there. You get it, eh? Then others, you see, the power for you to actually release your personal number. Many times someone calls you, and you're thinking, hello, my name is Alan Sempala Chigozi. And wait, before you even go any further, Sempala, who gave you my number? You see, Robert, the one you are in a training, and some people don't even tolerate that. They do what? So that shows you the need for privacy. Now, that is privacy and why it matters. Now, privacy is a human right. It has been provided for international conventions. It has been provided for in our Constitution, Article 27. It's a right, actually. It has been in since 1995. Only that we have not been put in context to it until issues of data protection came to fore. And we were forced, by the way, because the enactment of the Data Data Protection and Privacy Act in Uganda was more of by force. Not that the government really needed to have privacy regulated. Because even when it was done, as you notice, it still has glaring, loopholes. So privacy, as I've mentioned, is a right, and it's one right that if you don't have it, then you don't enjoy any other right. All of us, we are civil society organizations, and in a way or the other, we are advocating for a right? But I'm telling you, you cannot enjoy any right if you don't have the right to privacy. If you don't have the right to privacy, you can't associate. Yeah? You can't associate. Someone, for some reason, has you on radar. Who you're going to meet, when you're going to meet, and where you're going to meet. Okay? Imagine someone calls you. Many times pastors use this. I don't know if it's a divine intervention or they call it prophecy. You, last night you had gone to. Yeah, there is another pastor who does it good for me. He's called Prophet Elvis. Yeah, man of God. He'd be like, there is a lady here. She's in a blue coat. That lady yesterday, she was at the taxi park. In fact, she lost her phone. Then someone jumps out, man of God, it's me. It's me here. So many times the power for someone to know what you did scares us. If we are in church, we praise the pastor. Yeah? For the divine knowledge. If we are outside, someone actually tells you what you did yesterday, what time you left. That scares you, right? There are some transport applications here in Uganda. You know them? Another one. There is also what Jumia. Jumia just does delivery. But what transport those applications do, as those of you are using them, what they do is that they collect, yes, your personal data. They collect your phone number, your name, good. They also collect where your GPS location. Let's use an example of any transport app. If you use it, pick me. They pick you, right? Drop me here. They drop you. So usually, if someone wants to get hold of you, they don't need even to stalk you. Those days they would get a border and look for you and follow you, then try to mark coordinates. Yeah. Now I just have to compromise my friend at a transport company. I just need to know his problem, that he needs a Benz, is it called right? Huh? Bluebird, Blue Tech. This one needs a Benz, Blue Tech. Then I need to get Robert's whereabouts. And I know he works at a transport company. I will give him a Blue Tech, and he will give me his coordinates. I just need to know, where is he always at 8 a.m.? Where is he always at 9 a.m.? Those coordinates. Huh? Once I know those ones, I know where he works, I know where he lives. So I can get him. So as you're using those ones, someone actually is keeping you traced. So you can't even hide. Are you private anymore? My colleague Chris is going to take you through the security here. Those smartphones, those smartphones, you're surveilling yourself properly. Some of you are already having a location, that location app activated. You don't even know. Sometimes you download something and they tell you, allow, just allow, because you want to do what? You want to download the document, or you want to get whatever you want, or a movie. Allow, just allow. You allow everything, and the location is what? So for as long as you've owned a smartphone, Someone knows where you are, and the moment they need you, they will get you. So you're not private, you're public. Okay? So with the apps you use, with the way you conduct yourself, are you privacy aware? Are you sure you are safe? But you see, it's not only your safety. Some of us have children. And actually, to get Alan, I won't even need to grab him and put him in the drone and rush him away. No, I just need to know where Alan kids are. So through those coordinates, I can know where you take your children to school because your phone is active. I just stress during school days, he leaves home at 6:30. There is a point he usually goes at 7:30. That should be a school. Huh? I locate that. You get my point? And some of you are so generous. On your social media pages, you are so proud of your children. So even post, my Muchkin. What names do people give their children on social media? My Muchkin, my love, my everything, I'm proud of you, 1 year. Ooh. Even the names are there. Some of your children are in school uniform. I'm so proud to be a dad. You see, we are from school. And the badge is there. So the moment someone will need you, we are living in a very crazy world. Remember what happened to Susan Magala? If you follow that story of Susan Magala, really, it was her smartphone. First of all, she was coming from a very good family, so she could afford any kind of protection. But whoever needed her did his trailing for a good 2 years and made a plotting of her life, how she moves, how she... And yes, she has potential to protect herself, but usually she's at Silk or she's at Governor with friends, and there is nothing serious. And before you know it, Susan was taken, cut, dead, finished. It can happen to your wife. Huh? Even post your wives. Herbert, where is Herbert? Praise God. Herbert. Huh? And other friends, you're proud of your wives. Good. But sometimes I just need to know where Alan is, his location, so I could get his wife. So he helped me get his wife on social media, so I have her picture, so I can go look for who I want. You get my point? So that's how serious issues privacy are. Now this is personal. Sometimes, actually, someone can be gotten from the works you do as civil society organizations. Many times, if I want a contact of African Union, I'll call Gilbert. Gilbert, what's up? Okay? Hey. Now, we have an engagement with African Union, but do you have anyone? Then Gilbert will be so generous and a phone number and email. Now we have a law. We have a law. We have regulations. And should you misuse someone's personal data, we are going to see the consequences. Okay? We have information privacy. That is, it relates to individuals' ability to determine for themselves when and how, for what purpose their personal data is handled. Okay? So information privacy relates to, similarly, what I've just mentioned. We share people's contacts without necessarily asking for their permission. But sometimes we use apps that tell us we only collect your name and phone number, nothing else. But trust me, no transport app actually tells you they collect your raw GPS data. Then you wonder, why are things on this platform cheap? It's not the things that are cheap, it's you who uses the platform. You are the commodity. You are the what? So when you're using social media platforms, be very cautious. What information are you giving out? And if you're giving it out, be very, very cautious to ask, what are you going to use my information for? Okay? Sometimes you go to the hospital and they have all this information on you. Then you find it wrapped in cassava. You find it in insurance companies. The other time, my colleague got a loan from MTN. Okay? He got a loan from MTN. You see, you know that Momo advance. They gave him some good money. And the moment they credited his account, someone from Mangu Cash called. We can also give you. And they called using his name. Hello, Bob. How are you? We can give you some money. Now, which means Momo app has issues. There is a third party they don't tell you about. And not only one, several. At the Privacy Symposium Africa, at the end of it, we launched a report called the Privacy Scorecard Report. The Privacy Scorecard Report started as a Ugandan affair, really assessing data collectors in Uganda as to whether they comply with the relevant laws that we have. So we assessed several companies, and like expected, several had third parties that they didn't have privacy policies, their practices. Mark you, they had even registered as data collectors with the regulator. Okay? So last year, the report now added another country called Kenya. So it's Privacy Scorecard, Kenya and Uganda. The report is gradually growing, and eventually it will cover the entire Africa. Okay? Where we would assess all data collectors to see if they comply with the municipal laws. Now, in this report, these websites that you use, in there, they have connections or they have dealings with marketing and analytical companies. Even the website of Ministry of ICT, by the way. So as you log in, your personal data, in a way, is transferred to Facebook and Google. Which is why sometimes you even see your profile on Facebook doesn't look like, mine doesn't look like hers, or his, okay? Because of those traces that you leave when you visit those websites. Many of these companies were claiming to collect only one personal data. And we only collect phone number, nothing else. But after getting your phone number, there is a way they get more of your personal data. So you are actually commodity. So take time and read this report. It will inform you on your decisions on who to work with. And when you work with them, you should know your fate. Sometimes, this is why we brought this campaign, Beramu. Beramu, like my colleague said, it empowers us and even empowers collectors like you. Beramu ku information you go kolachi. That ne go collecting. Because now we have a law, they can take you to court, and you know, as civil society, we are black sheep. A while ago, several were put to rest. You remember? Several civil society organizations were told not to go ahead with their work. Apparently, they don't comply. And in them was chapter 4, who has always taught us compliance. That doesn't mean that chapter 4 didn't comply. But you are having a paranoid regime. They can grab you at any instance. They can come to you and tell you, wait, Sam, did you do a privacy or data protection assessment this year? And now, did you do assessment? It's a requirement of law. The law requires you to have a data protection officer who is trained. Do you have one? Close. Close now. Sam, your organization is gone. So be very cautious. You see, as you leave this room today, go back and ensure that you have everything that we're going to take you through in line. If they don't grab you with URA, they'll grab you with the NGO bureau. Now, the other time, the bureau issued a statement to all civil society and NGOs. Register with the DPO. Who had that? Huh? They cautioned us. You do what? The next time they want you, they'll just send an officer to you. Hello, we are from the bureau. We wanted to check if you have a certificate from the PDPO. And you see. No, it's okay. You close. Close, eh? You close when you register with the DPO. Okay? So we should be very cautious. Mr. Kalema, this slider is misbehaving. So what information privacy? What information privacy? There is also communication privacy. Okay? In the context of digital privacy, communication privacy is the notion that individuals should have the freedom or right to communicate information digitally with expectation that their communications are secure, meaning that messages and communications will only be accessible to senders, original intended recipient. Sometimes emails, in a way, there is that BCC when you're sending an email. Hey, so you want him to know, but you don't want him you're sending to know that he's in what? Should he know that the information you're sharing, in a way you BCC'd him, the law says 10 years. 10! Luzira. Or you pay 4.8 million. Now, 4.8 million is a starter. The judge has discretion to determine the grave, the danger that email did to him. And should he determine or find out that that image or that email or communication in a way disenfranchised his business, his reputation, 10 years. Or you can even pay. You can pay and also go to what? If you can't pay, we convert that payment to years. We make them 15 years. Huh? Or if you have some property to attach, we attach some of that property and you don't go to prison. You see how serious this is? It's very serious. So communication privacy is very serious. There is a counselor then, he was called Suleiman Chidandala. Have you heard of that guy before? Suleiman Chidandala was a very powerful counselor in KCCA here, in the days of, early days of Rukwago's Lord Mayor. Thank you very much. He was a deputy Lord Mayor. A very promising politician who he thought would take one of the constituencies in Kampala here. He was very tight with Lukwago, and he was in the struggle. Huh? Are you in the struggle? So this gentleman, he loved power so much, to a certain point, he thought, I should also work with government. So that in case Lukwago doesn't, in a way there is a cheat that passes support. So he had a discussion with Kale Kaihura, then the IGP. A very serious discussion about opposition. The discussion was tense. and it was recorded. That discussion or communication leaked. When it leaked, that was the end of Chidandala. I don't know, where is he? You're his assistant. No one wants, we also look at the impact of infringement on privacy. What happens if your privacy is infringed on? Sometimes your reputation is not the same. Huh? We are powerful ladies in town. Powerful lawyers. City lawyer. Simple arrangements. Until they learned that you took someone process by process. You remember someone who took someone process by process? Naive. The results were lose the seat. He's called pastor, but I don't know if he's still pastors. So reputation. Sometimes what I know about you, if I know the skeleton, you might not be the same again. Unless you are too creative. Too creative, like Desire Ruzinda. When her personal information leaked, she even produced a song. You are afraid. What was that song?
Chitone.
I told you. So she wrote on that song, but eventually she got saved and realized, by the way, that was bad. You get my point? So your reputation, when your personal information leaks out, protect it. Your privacy is your dignity. If your privacy goes out of the window, your dignity will move out of the door. You can't have both. Okay? When you lose one, the other one does what? So communication privacy. The other privacy, the individual privacy. Okay? We mentioned we started with the individual privacy. You yearn to be private. You don't want to be known. Okay? Huh? Someone said, there was a comment someone made here. Imposter? Masquerade. Sometimes because we want to appear very important, we also masquerade. What would you think of me? Yeah, we come. Money, small problem. How much? Back away. And when the bill comes, I go to the washroom. You'll never see me again. So individual privacy is why you people, all of you, came with shirts and blouses. Why were you at Enasati? All of you came with blouses, and because there are certain parts that you want to be seen by you alone or by a privileged few. Over many. Many. Which is why you put on shirts. Okay? Now, as Christians, then our privacy differs from Muslims. A Muslim will be like, sikulagata balianga, it's for my husband. I only show you eyes. The Taliban's told their women, don't even show them the eyes, put a net. Don't go to school, don't drive cars, don't even show them the eyes. Now, in UAE, you can show them the eyes. And probably, Nakali, is that it? And the chin? The Taliban's told their women, don't even show them the what? The eyes are a preserve of your husband alone. Hey. Privacy. Now, that is what it means, private, individual privacy. You want your personal space, like he mentioned. And to have that personal space, you want a limited fee, you give permission. It's very, very dangerous when you reach a point where you can't control who comes into your life. Now, if we are that private, we put on shirts, trousers. We even put on belts and paletegua. You want assurance, taja kolachi? Huh? You want assurance that my privacy won't be seen by the undesired. Then why do you go on social media pages and litter out your personal information? Why do you go to register for a SIM card and you don't bother to ask, where do you keep my information? Why do you send mobile money at agents and leave the number so both numbers left and the names in that book? Where do those books go? Where do books we keep at our gates go? We all have register books, right? Where do you keep them? Who knows where their register book is? Where is the mic? Who knows where their register book is? No. The one when a visitor comes at the gate or at the reception. Who knows where the books are for the past 5 years and what happened to that information? Who knows? You people. Now you see? Do you know that probably someone lost their life because of that book? Probably. They just got the number from there and off they went. Some girl you are helping could probably have been already manipulated, called, promised jobs, put in either home or somewhere, raped, life killed. And you don't know, by the way. Huh? So individual privacy is very important. If the privacy, let's now do individual. Huh? If you're generous enough, you can also give organizational. If the data, in fact, let's do organizational. Individual is more of very personal. Organizational, what are the impacts? Or what is the impact that can happen should privacy be infringed? Someone gets to your corner and you're thinking, who are you? How did you even know me? How? Huh? Those organizations that are dealing with children. I had someone from Watoto. Watoto is one of those very professional that I know. I think those who deal with children, I've never had any instance with Watoto. I've never heard of any. Because they've dealt with children for over 30 years, right? 30 plus years. And we've never had a child being abducted or what, you know. But that shouldn't put you in a safe what? It can easily happen for the first time and you, okay? So members, you have stick notes on your tables. Please write any implication, any impact you think. What happens if your privacy, as an organization, what will happen? Let's share, let's see if this can be relatable. What can happen? What do you think if the privacy of the information you hold dearly to, okay, is abused? Many of those websites, once you click cookies, they are installed straight away onto your computer. So everything that gets on your computer, they get to have a piece of what you have, especially the websites you visit and all that. Which is why sometimes you see on the Facebook pages of ladies, there are children things, weaves, things like that. For men, it's soccer, betting, and all that stuff. Yes, sir. Like I will show you in the law requires each organization to have a DPO. Okay? If you have a DPO and there is any breach of personal information by your organization, they will go for Sempala Alan Chugo's the DPO. Not the executive director. The DPO. If you don't have one, then whoever received that information, they will go for you. 10 years. And also fine the organization. Or both. So true imprisonment. It can lead to death, for example, in organizations where personal data is collected and it's not stored privately. Yes, it can lead to. I gave you a story of Susan Magara. Yafa. How they got to her life and knowing what she's doing, where she, personal information, smartphone. And Instagram played a very good role there. Because usually ladies go to Instagram and do those small videos. What are they called? Those who do. Does anyone use Instagram here? Who uses Instagram? No one uses. Yourself. Usually the videos even show the room. They show your necklaces, and so you can't disguise. So you have several looks, right? So if they fail you to, you own. But she's the one. She even used it here, and here. Some of you, both men and women, stalkers, use your personal information that you litter around to get to you. Wanji? How do you know? Madam here has a classic example of stalkers. So those of you sleeping here today, watch out. Be very careful so that no one knocks on your door, right? So death is very, very true. Many times the child sacrifices you hear, they are a cause of a reckless, lazy parent. A lazy, reckless parent. My one and only child. My hair. My family. My. Meanwhile, at Watoto, you are a faithful servant who doesn't allow kin to kill what? So you've denied someone a chance to supply food to Watoto worth billions of what? Like, Solon, you've denied me, you will see. Now, they get your daughter and tell you, you go and influence. If you make noise, we'll kill. You've had those instances? And sometimes they even kill. They eventually do what? How do they got your child? You use Uber to drop them. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook posting them. You use Safeboard Smart to deliver what not. You buy tabs on Jumia. So we have all that information. We know where we can get your child. So please approve the billion worth contract. Then you won't tell Rotlonyo that, you see, Pastor, my child is abducted, so please just allow the man to be like, look at this. Are you okay? And in fact, for them, they'll even say, we are going to pray for you. He's going to be released in Jesus' what? Then you go back properly and sit on your desk. And then you call. How far have you? You know why? Because you're reckless with the information about you, but even your family. So you're putting your family at risk of even death because you're enjoying life. Good. Now, another one says, loss of trust. Now, you wrote it on the wrong side, so I can't pin it. But true. Loss of what? As businesses, organizations, imagine. You know how donors are very secretive about their information. Then they realize that MasterCard funds us, and because Julie also wants MasterCard to also fund her, and we are friends, so I'll be like, Julie, come on now, you give me the programs, whatever, the MasterCard, we need to meet. And I take them through what? You give me MasterCard information, I reach them out, they'll be very happy. Oh, nice to hear from you. We've seen your organization, even when they've not seen your organization. If I bother to ask, who gave you my information? I know it's Julie. Okay. The next time you go for renew, you won't have business. Because apparently you broke trust. Some of you who are at decision-making levels, you try to minimize as much people who come close to you. Because many would want you to favor them without following due process of the procedure or the law. So you try to minimize who contacts you. Now, even the contracts we sign with funders have privacy clauses. They're very particular about your compliance because you're handling sensitive data. That is organization. But also the people you help. You're a researcher. Yona. You're a researcher. Huh? And people have entrusted you with their information. Because you're what? And then you give out their information. The trust will go. And the moment trust goes in business, there is nothing. Zero. The beneficiaries you're helping. Which is why I asked, where are those books that you register people? Even those beneficiaries. Some of you have fields, you have detail about a person you're helping. Now, it's about time when you go to the field to take those pictures, you first alert them that we are going to use your pictures for ABC. Some beneficiaries, their photos go to Los Angeles, America, without them going. They don't even know. Then they find themselves in an annual report of a certain organization. How did they even go to USA? I remember I gave that to Robert. Robert, this photo of mine, why didn't you tell me? Mbaku sent. So trust for commercial businesses is trust. We do this scorecard report, and the idea is to help data subjects, you, those whose data is taken, to be empowered to know who is taking my data and what are they using it for. Are they doing responsible data use? PDPO had a webinar. When was it? This week? On Monday, Tuesday? Tuesday. When they were discussing ably responsible data use. And thank God there was a safe border official there. Because we've done an investigation on safe border and we noticed grave manipulation of your personal data. That report is public. You can go on our website and get it, or visit the PDPO website. They did in fact, it's the only investigative report they've done since establishment. We still plead with them to investigate more. Because whenever there are possible data breaches, we write to the director and tell her, Madam, this stockbroker here is manipulating, they're abusing. Okay? Because before you are so happy with the offer, always ask, Baba Funira Muwa, where do they gain from? How do they benefit? Black Friday, a fridge that was at 1 million, it is now at 400. Hey, you rush and do what? Are you sure you're not selling yourself? They're buying you at 400. Huh? So always ask them, who else do you share my personal data with? Do you have a contract? Do you have a contract with them? What is the compensation? Because there is no contract without compensation. The moment there is a contract between you and someone, there is compensation somewhere. Up to now, we are still asking Safe Border, what contract did you sign with CleverTap, an analytical company in USA? PDPO asked them the same. So when I was listening in, I expected Self-Border to be clear on that. But I must commend them. When we investigated and alerted DPO and eventually published that report, they changed. Now that's the beauty with CSOs. They changed, though not entirely. Still, that data is still going out. But to who? There is a company called Clevertap, an analytical company that owns those trackers. That company does analytics for several businesses, farmer, politicians, everything. So we are asking, if this company does this and you have a contract with them, what is the arrangement? We want to know. Yes, there is an arrangement, but they just help us to make sure that we locate you. They give us locators. Thank you very much. But what is the arrangement? Do you have a contract with them? Yes, we want to make that contract public. The moment you agree there is a contract, the lawyers here, you know. No contract is valid until there is a what? Consideration. Baba was sent a maker to give them our data. That's the question they've not yet answered. But that's a question Stanbic Bank should answer, MTN should answer, Airtel should answer. That's the question also NITA should answer, because NITA designs websites for government, provides support. And in our analysis, an investigation realized the recent breach of data of stock exchange, what? The stockbroker. It is NITA who built the portal for them. So we ask NITA, you are the regulators, what happened? They are still investigating. So members, you see that? Trust. The moment trust goes out, you have no business. Similarly, in civil society organizations, you have no business, nothing. No beneficiary will trust you if their information is out there. Someone has trusted you, I'm HIV positive, okay, since you are, we are going to build you a house, we are going to pictures. The information is full somewhere else. Will you go to a hospital where you find out that your information is with an insurance company? Because insurance companies call us and they get that information from hospitals where we go. How does an insurance company call you and know that you have diabetes? They try not to tell you that you're diabetic. Hello, Alan, how are you? Now, you see, we have this policy. Just in case you leave, life policy. Who told you I'm going to die because I have diabetes? So for those who are HIV positive, diabetes, pressure, this one is very possible. Possibly he will die. So you sell them life what? Hello? Isaac. So, the information you leave at the hospital, do not let doctors tell you these things, we know what we are doing. They don't know. You mean you don't trust me? By the time you come to my hospital, no, you ask them, where do you keep it? Who else accesses it? Those who have done sales and marketing for insurance companies know that they visit all hospitals, especially those with big clients. They are like funeral services. They bench where there are many deaths, which is why Mulago Hospital has more funeral companies' offices than any other hospital. Have you noticed? Around Mulago, there are almost all funeral companies in Uganda represented. They are agents. But equally, all hospitals, insurance companies do what? Because they need to know. For those that have life-threatening conditions, it is life insurance. Do you have children? You can pay and so that they go to university after. For those that don't have, can we do health insurance for a family? How do they get that information? So trust. The moment you know that that hospital sends your information out, you won't go back to that hospital, isn't it? Trust. It leads to damages and loss of lives. You've seen this. The damages might be reputational, it might be business. When we released the investigation, even the report, the private scorecard report, it's not a very popular report because it pins all biggest data collectors, now in Uganda and Kenya. It pins them on their practices. We get several emails of them claiming that we are spoiling their reputation. And we've always reminded them that there are courts. We've even given them addresses of court to go and challenge us where? Because this report is technical. We go deep in their applications. We go deep in their websites. We will see what privacy policies are. People promise one thing in a privacy policy and do another in their what? Now, you have a Bible reading app that has 55 trackers. King James Bible. I mean, King James Bible. 55 trackers. All those are taking information. What the hell does a Bible app require? Why does it need location? It has permissions of a location. I mean, it's Jesus. Why do you want my location? And you know where this information is kept? China. Last year, China passed its data protection law, but it is Chinese, if you know what I mean. Nothing but it gives government powers to take their information. It just informs them. There is Airtel Uganda. It's still in our report, private scorecard report. Airtel Uganda just informs people. By the way, we'll also use your information and we might send it outside the country. By virtue of you using our services, you have accepted to use your personal information the way we want. Hey. That is Airtel Uganda. And that is only for Africa. Airtel India has a robust data privacy, data protection policy. Robust. With all the rights. All the rights. In India, in Africa, they just inform you. We are taking. You have any problem? Okay, you sit down and enjoy Ipaka last. So it betrays organization's image. We said reputation. Negative impact. Blocks access to service of an individual in a public or private IG employee to the banks. Who mentioned this? Can you yes, elaborate, sir. Personal information is very key. In 2010, I also got a loan I didn't know about. Absa Bank, Kampala Road. They called me and told me, wait, boss, you are defaulting. I was like, wait a minute. Where? How? We gave you 10 million and you withdrew it in 2 installments. 5 million, 5 million. And the reason I'd taken the loan was house improvement. Now, I didn't even have a plot of land. Well, I took them on. And they kept quiet. They never came back. I think I was cleared. Now I owe them a clearance, what? Certificate that I cleared my loan. And damages. So I really concur with you. Platinum is one of those that really manipulate civil servants' personal data. They do it a lot. I've had that blocking before, not only for local governments, but also ministries. I've had it. They get contacts of, I don't know where they get those contacts from. We need to take on public service. Yeah, the commission and the ministry itself. How do these platinum guys get information of public servants? Oh? You've never registered with them. The moment you are given a job at public service, they contact you. Welcome on board. Yeah. Okay, so we put this one here. So thank you, sir. Point noted. Then financial implication. Financial implication, yes. If I'm to go by the example I used and his example, but whoever gave this financial implication, also you would want also to elucidate more. Who mentioned this impact of financial implication? Yes, you can. You would want to this one.
I talked of financial implication because, for example, if somebody's information is leaked and he takes you to court, as a company, you have to pay for damages, and in most cases, the damages are already huge. Yes, so for as we have been describing, for me, I work for insurance. So, for example, in insurance, we have where somebody is paying the premiums, and the total premium in that period is supposed to be, if it is above 150 million, that person is supposed to be taken for medical checkup at our cost. So now when you go to the hospital for medical checkup, now suppose that the medical center releases that information, this person is suffering from this kind of disease. So now the blame comes back on us. Yes.
Thank you very much.
I think when you get to my card also, I talked about financial implications, but in the sense that as an organization, in case our beneficiaries' information ever leaked, we have to find a way of beefing up our system, apart from following up and paying those legal costs. As an organization, we'll incur another cost of making sure that the client's data is more secure. So we'll have to beef up our security, and that will be costly on us.
Yeah, I agree with you, totally agree with you. Thank you very much. So, good submissions there. Someone else also mentioned financial loss, psychological pain. Yes, psychological pain. Psychological pain. Psychological pain, individual. I don't think organizations have psychological pain, but individual. Yes, sir. Yes. 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 It was an instance in USA and Kenya where an analytical company used information from Facebook to manipulate voters, both in US and Kenya in an election 2007 in Nairobi. What they did is that they used personal data to influence opinion and cause change. Okay? So that people can vote Uhuru Kenyatta then. Okay? So once that got to know that Facebook in a way uses people's personal data in a way that is not pleasant, and it gave it to Cambridge Analytica, their reason was that you see, Cambridge Analytica told us they're using it for research, so we gave it to them free of charge. Hey, free of charge. Now what happened was this. So what happened after it was found out that Cambridge Analytica got it wrongly, they closed the company. The company what? Closed. Several others closed, because there are many. But again, it didn't close. The same directors of Cambridge Analytica are the same directors of CleverTap. Say amen. CleverTap, the friend of many people here, like Safe Border and Uber and all that. Okay. So let me finish this very fast and we do a break. So reputation, true. Closure, yes, you're right. They might close even our organization. I mean, I told you we are black sheep. They can just jump on that and close you. Close you. Okay? So it will ruin reputation. We saw that of the organization to the extent that those collaborating with the company may cut out or drop working with organization for fear of information being leaked. It's true. It's true. Then threatening the beneficiaries of GBV advisory centers. GBV is gender-based violence. Yes. Who gave this one? Kindly explain more. Who gave this GBV It sounds good, so please.
For starters, I can't say that it has.
Have a gender-based, online gender-based program at Unwanted Witness. So usually we work a lot with the Ministry of Gender and the police. So they called us and they told us, we have a problem. There is a lady who is being harassed, okay, by the husband. So the guy is threatening to kill. But the lady has asked us not to give out information about her to anyone else, but we retain it. But here is her number. No, it's police giving the information. They have refused them to give. But I'd asked them, wait a minute, you are the police officer. This is criminal. What do you want unwanted witness to do? We can help in safety tips on how to, set your phone in a way that someone can't track you. That we can do ably. And I hope Chris can help us in that, so that we are not easily tracked. Okay? In his session. But he was giving us her number now to push it further. So I agree with you. Disclosure of their information, sometimes they want to be private. Thank you very much. Then the other one was office break-ins. When you give out a lot of your information, office break-ins. To a given extent, yes. But to someone who really is interested in you, no. Years ago, like 5-6 years ago, at Unwanted Witness, we didn't have signposts. So it was deliberate. The door was plain, the gate was plain. So when you enter, even inside our premises, you will not, and sometimes it can even get more sophisticated. So they can easily break in. To a certain extent, yes, if they know personal information about your organization, easily people can break in. But again, you have funders, you have partners who need to work with you. How will they locate you? But again, if you don't brand your place and post it out there, people might think you're dealing with, you have funny issues you're dealing with. So to a certain extent, yes, but to a greater extent, unless they don't want you. But even if you want to see me, you will locate him. If he has a smartphone and he has given you his number, it's just a couple of hours. I will know where he lives, where he works, where he eats lunch from, where he does recreation from. About golf course. Yeah? So I will know. So it's very important that for starters, as people, before we are organizations, we are human beings. So first ensure your privacy is guaranteed. Your phone is not a surveillance tool, because you can use that smartphone without people tracking you easily. Easily. You remember how this gentleman called Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine in Arua, yeah, I'd been looked for. These guys wanted him for some time. So they go to Arua, check into the hotel, and these guys get confirmation that the much hunted animal is what? So operation, they gave it a code name, and it was time to go for the young man. So they went to the hotel, grabbed everyone. That was the first phase of search. Yeah? Grabbed everyone, friends, what? Arrested them. Then they went to check if Bob Wayne is among those arrested. No, he's not. They went back. Opened septic tanks, opened everything. Poor man is not in. They called Kampala. What is his phone number? This is his number. Give it to us. Checked the phone, it's on. Location, Arua. Exactly that hotel, so he's in. The first team had left the hotel and claimed, we failed to get this man. He's not in. Maybe he didn't come. He usually says he works in a rubber-dub style. That day the rubber-dub style didn't do what? They grabbed him from the ceiling with his smartphone. So that smartphone is very, very dangerous. Use it wisely, but they can easily track you on it, okay? And not necessarily government. Like you know, Magara wasn't handled by government, right? They were just private individuals who were very smart. There are several abductions. Others will claim it's government, but sometimes these are mafias, these are wrongdoers who are very smart, they know. Okay? Only that government gets the soft beating every time anything happens, is what? But someone can use Hotel Africana's Wi-Fi to know who was here, what they are doing, where they are, and get your information. So it may not necessarily be government to go into the Wi-Fi. So be very, 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 very cautious how you use your phone and how you set it up. Legal consequences, we will see the legal consequences. Closure of NGOs, we've seen that. It can be used to harm you in i.e. killing. Yes, we've seen that. It can easily happen. Damage the reputation of the organization. Yes, we've seen that. As an organization, it would create lack of trust from clients. Yes, we've seen that. Personal, possible mental health struggles. Celebrities that have their nudes leaked. Yes, we've seen that. Then from the background of research, it's mandated that you receive consent before a person collects data, for there can be a possibility of being sued by that individual. Yes, it's very true. You need consent, but we will see consent and how it is acquired. As an organization, you ought to have a proper policies of consent. Consent has to be freely given, specific and unambiguous. Freely given. Not that of Airtel, where they say, by virtue of using our services, you've consented to using your personal information. So we will share it with third parties. You get it? So as an organization, when they give consent, they also have to sign that we've consented. Because tomorrow they will go to court and claim, I didn't consent. You used my personal data. Then the judge will be, if you claim he consented, who is proof that he consented? You see, my lord, me, I explained to them and they said they know they have problems. Members, now that there is a law, it means you can be taken to court. Be very, 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 very cautious. You can be taken to court, and not to those you've done wrong. Those who have bad, malicious tendencies. I might have wanted to throw down unwanted witness. So I trick them into taking my personal data, vague way of acquiring it. I go to court. You know what it means? Someone who is advocating for privacy to be sued for infringing on someone's privacy? All of you be like, is he a training? What went wrong? Reputation, PR crisis for organization violation. Yes, we've seen this. Thank you. Possibilities of blackmail. We've seen that. Possibilities of blackmail. If you don't know who you're suing, sue everyone. If on this table, I'm not so sure who leaked my information, but I was on this table. I sue everyone on this table. Now, court will sort out who was the wrongdoer. But also, many times, if you have good investigative skills, if you have good lawyers, they will sieve out and know where that information. There are certain connotations. For instance, someone getting a loan from Momo, and then I get a call. So if we go into the technical analysis of Momo platform, you might realize that Mangu is a beneficiary of that. What? So sometimes it's tricky, but if you have really determined and committed investigative lawyers, and sometimes it's not you, but sometimes someone who wants to go after you. It might be someone who wants to go after platinum, and I have to make sure it falls so that I come in. I will definitely put enough resources to investigate that. So Platinum will, you waste people's data. Then I come in and say, no, don't be, we're not like those ones who used to waste people's data. Then you ride on Platinum's fall. So members, thank you for your opinions. It's been a pleasure. Allow me to invite my colleague to take you through a 5 minutes break, then we can proceed before we go to lunch. We do now? A break? To determine who comes into that personal space, okay? And to what extent should they come into that personal space? For how long should they be in that personal space? And if they come in that personal space, what do they take away? What do they leave? That's data protection. So for civil society organization, the personal data that you might be collecting involves staff members, volunteers, information regarding donors, suppliers, users of your services. Call them data subjects. So all that information, how you protect it, who accesses it, is very, very important. Which means, even when you are an organization, not everyone should have contacts of the founder in that organization. Even when you are an organization, I had someone coming from the HR section. Not everyone should know that information about their fellow employees. Okay? Some are on health insurance, and they have parted with some really sensitive information. You ought to protect that information very well, because you see, before, let's look at staff. Before, when staff would have issues with the organization they are working for, this table is almost not here. They've got to know each other more. So, Mr. Mutiaba, kindly look for this table. Let them know that we are in session. Thank you. I was saying that in recent days, when we would have issues with the organization that we're working for, we would go to labor office and claim they didn't give me what? My leave. I was wrongly terminated. Now we have something new that staff can take to PDPO now. They misused my personal information. Huh? So on top of paying for unpaid leave, wrongful termination, you're also going to pay for? Hey, things are serious, very serious. So don't deal with personal information of your staff. Those in HR function, please guard that information jealously. It should be somewhere where there are passwords. It should be on a computer that has passwords. Okay? The technical people usually call it two-factor what? Four-factor? Five?
Multi-factor authentication.
Yes. Multi-factor authentication means you open the computer, ask for a password, you give it, it asks for another one, another one. Like several layers of what? And strong passwords. So for someone to get into that information, which is why the law is very clear that whoever is a custodian to that information, if there is any breach, that is a person that is going to be taken where? If there are no security measures, it means that person did not. So, as a matter of practicality, those who are concerned about being practical, when you go back to your organizations, for starters, appoint or encourage your supervisors to appoint a data protection officer, preferably you. Preferably who? And you see, when you become a data protection officer for an organization, that elevates you to even sitting on the board. Hey, the board will not take any decision that requires the use of personal data without your consultation. Because look here, it's your head out there. Okay? So you advise them. Where they do so, let them put it in writing that we did this without the consultation of what? Of you. Then you are exonerated. So you're hereby appointed data protection officers. So, like I mentioned earlier in my earlier submissions, we have in Uganda, we have majorly two laws that govern data protection. We have the Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019 and the Data Protection and Privacy Regulations of 2021, okay, which we call data protection laws in Uganda. Of course, there are scattered bits of privacy when you go to the Health Act, when you go to the Computer Misuse Act. Now, by courtesy of Nseroko, there is a privacy thing scattered there. Yeah, the Financial Regulations Institutions Act, you know, has some bits of privacy in there. But the major laws that govern data protection in Uganda is the Data Protection and Privacy Act of 2019 and the Computer Misuse, rather the Data Protection and Privacy, where's the act? And the Data Protection and Privacy Regulation. The act looks like this. So I encourage all of you, in your annual budget this year, include in these acts. When you're planning for your organizations, plan to have these what? Acts. These acts are very, very important. So that it's a very small act. It has, let me see, it has 29 pages. 29 pages. 29 pages, you can read them in 30 minutes. 30 minutes, you can read the 29 pages. So every time you're going to make a decision on data protection, please refer to these acts. And they've made them so simple that they don't have a lot of legalese. So the interpretation can be done by any person who is not a lawyer. The regulations too are very important. They operationalize the act, so you can have them on your shelves as well. So the data that is considered by this act is any information that can identify a person. Okay, the act in section 2. Just a minute. Section 2. I will read verbatim, members, but you can go back and do what? We will give you these notes, so don't be so much worried. At the end of the day, we are going to send these notes to you so you could be able to relate. The Act Section 2 defines personal data to mean information about a person from which the person can be identified. That information is recorded in any form and includes data that relates to A, the nationality of someone, the age or marital status of a person, that is personal data. So as you're asking for it, you should know that that is personal data. Okay? The education level or occupation of a person, an identification number, symbol, or any particulars assigned to a person, identity data, or other information which is in the possession of or is likely to come into possession of the data controller and includes an expression of opinion about an individual. We talked about opinion, right? So an expression of opinion about an individual is personal data. So data that clearly relates to a person, such as name, we've seen, it's covered by the law. Data that can by itself won't identify a person, but which could identify a person when combined with other information that an NGO holds within its files. Okay? For example, an NGO may hold records that do not identify a person by name. Instead, Those records bear unique reference numbers that, when matched to another data set on file, identify the people concerned. You get it? You may not necessarily have that direct identifiable information, but when we connect the tidbits of that information with other files, we can easily do what? So be very careful. You might use it not knowing it's personal information, then you land into serious problems. So those are the examples of what constitutes personal data. We've seen it, I've read it. Okay? Your email address can be, internet protocol address can be, Robert, cookie ID. Okay? Chris will give a detailed explanation on that. Information held by doctors and what? Now, there is also what is not personal information. Things like a company registration number. It's not personal information. You have organizations, okay? So that is not personal information. So don't go to court and sue someone for using your corporation identification what? Like registration by the URSB or NGO Bureau. That is not personal information. You will lose the case. An email address such as info@watoto.com or any anonymized data. That is not personal information. So there are several activities that are regulated by the data protection laws. We say the data protection laws are those that the Data Protection and Privacy Act and its regulations. The data protection laws regulate the processing of personal data. Processing should be interpreted broadly, covering everything that a civil society organization does with data, from collecting it, storing it, using it, then finally destroying it. Sometimes you need to destroy that information. Okay? Which is why I asked you, where did you take the books 5 years ago that were registering people? For how long should you keep beneficiaries' contacts and information about them? Unfortunately, our law is a bit vague on what is the retention period. Okay? Now that is a loophole that you can use. But don't be so smart. Should someone take you to court and court determines that no, in normal circumstances, I think you kept this information way too long, to the extent that you see it has affected some other person's what? Being. Yesterday I was talking to a journalist who left a media house 10 years ago, and they are still calling them to come and cover a story. And apparently that number, the client got it, or the person got it from the media house. So do you still have to keep information of former employees who left 10 years ago? It's a yes and no, but make sure it is not too much to the extent that is unrequired. And sometimes it depends on the discretion of the judge. Depending on how you woke up, you kept it for long, he will find you liable. So you don't know what the judge is thinking. Don't rely on it so much. What do data protection laws apply to? Data protection laws apply to NGOs as well, we've noticed, because we are also data collectors. We have employee information, we have beneficiaries information, we have donor information, we have service providers information. Sometimes you have graphic systems as your supplier. You have information about the salesperson, your contact person. But then someone gets that number because she saw a lady, a beautiful lady at it, delivering stuff at your office. And then they pick that number and use it for something else. Only for the lady to find out that they got that number from a client. So, as individuals, it's a risk using information that you did what? Where I fault the law, and these are discussions we've had with Ministry of ICT and the PDPO office, the law is not clear in defining on who is a data collector or processor. Who qualifies to be one? What is the threshold? Because currently, all Ugandans are data collectors according to the law. And we are. How many numbers do you have in your phone book?
Over 1,000.
Thank you very much. You're a data collector. So the law requires you to register with the PDPO and get a certificate. It requires you to have a privacy policy the way it is right now. It requires you to have an information breach or risk assessment policy, a complaint format and policy as an individual. So you see, the way the law was done, even when government wants Sempala Island, they will get me. Huh? Remember how they got Chagulanyi and they told him he had guns? With this law, they will arrest him again and tell him, you have 2 phones, each with 1,000. Did you register? No. What does the law say? The other unfair thing about the law again, which you need to know about these things. When you register with the PDPO, you are required to pay 100,000 shillings. Okay? Now, we've just seen that anyone who has personal information that identifies someone, for starters, the phone, you're already a data collector. Oh, yeah, thank you. 100,000 shillings per year every time you renew. It comes with that. You're required to pay 100,000. MTN Uganda is also required to pay 100,000. So you see the amount of data MTN collects and the amount of data Sempala collects. How can we pay the same amount? You see the unfairness? So your organization, which doesn't collect a lot of data, should actually pay the same amount of money Jumia pays. Do you know how much data Jumia collects? Daily. Daily. Telecoms combined all have 35 million subscribers. Telecoms combined. Now we have 2 telecoms, 3. Huh? UTL, what is UTL? How do you term it? Is what? They all pay 300,000 every year. And unwanted witness, 100,000. You see the unfairness? So we are data collectors. However, NGOs and civil society organizations that are based outside Uganda are also caught by law. To the extent they process personal data relating to Ugandans data subjects, they will be subject to the DPPA and its regulations. So those that have counterparts out, funders and all that, let them know that we have a law. Okay? That should government be interested in them, especially if they think they have Western agendas. Does your organization have Western agendas? Boy, government these days says NGOs have Western agendas. They push the Western agenda. So they're very, very careful with how you deal with them. They need to know who your funders and what they are funding. Are they funding NUP or... I think it's the reason why GDF, is it called GDF? DGF? Some of those reasons that it wasn't allowed to continue. So we also have principles of data protection. Our law has 7 of them. Those principles are under section 3 of the Act. Yes. Processing must be done fairly, lawfully, and in a transparent manner. This means 2 things. being transparent with the people who have shared their personal data with you. We are getting this information from you, and we are going to use it for ABCD. We are going to share it with ABCD. So you're transparent. You have nothing to hide. But should they find out that none of the reasons you're using the information wasn't on the form they signed, on the consent they gave you, you are in trouble. The beauty is, in the early days of Vaseline, jelly, those skin ointments in the USA, okay? Those companies suffered a lot of court cases. They would advertise and claim, our jelly will make you look beautiful, will make you change. You see how they advertise that, or someone and move it, Radiant. When you use Radiant in your hair, you will glow and you'll be like that lady in the advert. Okay? So you use it and you also do your hair like this and you wonder what happened to mine. But those days, people would take those companies to court and tell court, this lady here, sorry I'm using you, ma'am. This lady here promised me that if I use her jelly, I'm going to look like a Mzungu. I'm going to, but I've used 5 tins, look. No change. Pay back my money, time wastage, damage, psychological torture, everything. I even lost a wife. They would pay. Now, in the early days of the Act 1 lacks regulations. It lacks industry-specific frameworks. For instance, civil society ought to have their framework. How civil society handles data is not the same way MTN should handle. If someone is from MTN, they will think I have something personal because I'm using MTN a lot. But any data collector who is commercial, the way hospitals handle personal data is not the way insurance companies, for that matter, handle what? So we need industry specific. We don't need any room for vagueness, ambiguousness. Okay? Because the way the law is here, you can be sued anyhow, anywhen, and wherever. We are just at the mercy of those who use their personal data. So keep smiling. People, don't stop smiling at those people. You can be sued the way the law is. And the principle in law, there is no bad law. For as long as there is a law, you first abide by that bad law before unwanted witness goes to court and they annul Section 25 of the Computer Misuse Act, right? So Section 25 of the Computer Misuse Act was very vibrant and was used to prosecute as many people as possible, until it was taken to court and annulled. It was a good law. Okay? So we can complain, there is no threshold, the unfairness, the vagueness, the no industry-specific regulations, but comply to as much as you can. Okay? We will always engage Parliament, we will always engage Ministry and PDPO to make it more clearer who qualifies to be a data collector. But as it stands right now, me and you, we are. And like yours truly, I also don't have a certificate. The organization has, but me, Sempala, I don't have. So I can also be taken to court right now. Okay? So be very transparent with your the personal data you collect. So organizations should be upfront as to how personal data will be processed, for what purpose, and where it will be shared with anyone else. Privacy notices provide a good way to communicate this type of information. Members, please, the first step towards showing transparency or abiding by Section 3 of the Computer Misuse Act is having a privacy policy. It's the only way you will prove to court that I'm deliberate about getting consent. It should be noticeable, readable, and on the first page of your website or at your reception when people visit. That is the only way you prove to court. When someone has taken you to court, yeah, this person here, my lord, he infringed my privacy. He took my data without even giving me reason why he's taking what? You know, on my website. For instance, try to visit the unwanted witness website. The first thing that pops up before you use anything else on that is the policy. You can try that on your websites as well. So that when someone visits your website, the first thing that pops up, they call them pop-ups. Isn't it, Mr. Karema? Those pop-ups. Let it pop out. Well, this is our privacy policy. Yeah, before you use our website, first read it. So you can't claim we took your data when there was a pop-up. How did you bypass it? If you ignored it, that was you being black. So you are those who wanted practical things. Are we being practical? Are we being practical? For starters, I don't even know about to. So when you go back, tell the technical team, put a pop-up of the privacy policy. You need a privacy policy is a statement that shows how you use the data you're collecting, what data you're collecting, where you store it. It's very important. Some of us here don't even know where that data is collected. How many of you know where the information you collect on website is collected? Thereafter, the information you collect from people. Where is it stored? Under the carpet? Under the SCARI's office? Or when the ED goes or the organization goes with everything, then you start looking for new orders. It's the first step when you go back. Where do you keep all that information? As long as there is personal information collected, the person you're collecting that info, for instance, I can't get her number from you. I should get it from her, so she gives me a clear consent. So whatever, if you have secondary, primary, university data, I don't know. For as long as you have to get consent. Now for you who is collecting it, you're protecting yourself. You get it, eh? So the information you get, it's up to you to dissect it into whatever levels you want it. Whether it qualifies to be primary or secondary. But make sure when you're obtaining it, as long as it's personal information, sometimes it's anonymized. You don't have to. Some information is anonymized in research. You don't need to get consent. But as long as it's identifiable, please get clear consent. Okay? Clear consent, not coerced. Like imagine I stood here and I told you, I want to proceed unless all of you have signed those forms. Then I walk out. You remember the schools we went through for us, there are certain teachers who would not proceed unless everyone has attempted a number. Eh? So if your answer I will come back. So I tell you, look here, if you don't sign, or if you finish signing, you call me and I train. That is coercion. You're coercing people into what? Signing what they don't believe in. Yes, sir. Fiona. Now, my friend who mentioned about medical, yes. There is Section 7 of the Act. It speaks to consent to collecting data, okay, and processing personal data. It says, subject to subsection 2 of this very section, a person shall not collect, process personal data without prior consent of the data subject. Subsection 2 says, personal data may be collected or processed, where the collection or processing is authorized or required by law. We are coming to TASO. Or where it is necessary. But D of subsection 2 says where it is for medical purposes. So your friends might have been tracked because of that. Medical purposes. But also the Public Health Act gives powers to those people to do anything within the law to make sure that they reduce the spread of diseases. So probably they track Sarah, whoever, to make sure Sarah doesn't go to Alan. Okay. Yes, sir.
there have been these scenarios of where, for example, somebody is presenting a report. Maybe he did a research, maybe in Nakasongora. So he says, mention somebody's name. He says, Tony Nisima said this. Then he said, Tony Nisima.
Huh? That is minimization. Minimize what you collect. Only collect what you need. Don't collect everything, because when you collect everything, you might land into problems. So to minimize the risks, please. So personal data must be accurate, kept up to date. As I was growing up, I had a class teacher who would call my name Sempali. Instead of Sempala, Sempali. Sempali Alan, I would feel offended, you know, because my name is Sempala Alan Chigozi. So he would call me Sempali. So people would have fun of me, okay? Now, if this law was there then, I would take her to court, Amina. So accurate, that information ought to be personal information that personal data should not be kept longer than necessary. We saw that. We should be deleting data when it's no longer required. Sometimes you have to burn it. You have to come up with mechanisms of how you can destroy that data. You can destroy data. Don't keep it, because if you keep it for long, you might be in problems. Okay? But even destroying it, don't give Mama Nachi who sells cassava, these papers I don't need anymore. Yeah? You can use. Sometimes we find results, you know, examination results of children at the market, putting in pancakes. You get it? Misuse of data. Personal data must be kept secure. You don't have to be so much sophisticated. If you don't have so much computers, can it be locked somewhere where it is only accessed by a few? If you have computers like many of you I'm seeing, can you have multi-factor authentications? Okay? So there are benefits of personal data. Some of them we've seen, that those that relate to privacy almost relate to data protection as well. Data protection is key. It's a key asset for civil society. Handling it properly will be, it should be objective as an organization. So compliance means good data management, which can in turn save your organization time, effort, and money. Money in case they sue you. Time in case, you know, the time you spend in court. Even retracting information. If you're organized, you keep records. Okay? Like for instance, I've asked you, where is that information you collected 5 years ago? If you don't know, you know, and if you really need it, if you didn't record it very well, you might find a problem. You can demonstrate data protection of subjects, you know, of personal data. You will develop, maintain trust, confidence. When you do that, you get confidence and trust. We saw this. Okay? So there are different risks. We've seen the financial loss. You know, people explain the financial loss, how that comes about. Okay, a data breach can be expensive to put right, and will reduce the public confidence in you. In case we know that our data was, you know, went out of the roof, use a lot of money, you know, to put your image right. Okay. So definitely, even penalties by the regulator. If you keep your things right, then you won't get any penalties from the regulators. So what does it require? What does the DPP, the Data Protection and Privacy Act, and its regulations, what does it require? Okay, the DPPA definitely came in effect. It wasn't last year, this year. It was the other year, 2019 and 2021. The regulations, they introduced obligations for us. Okay, that may not have been subject to other previous, obligations. Before, you would only have to go and register with, first of all, with the registrar of companies. Okay, then you would, as long as you are registered as non-profit, that was enough. Then the NGO Act came on board. You have to register with the bureau. Now you have to register with the DPPO. So it has brought new sets of obligations. But you see, the DPPA specifically requires accountability. Okay? NGOs and civil society organizations cannot merely say they comply with DPPA. They must be able to demonstrate compliance through data protection policies training and record keeping. Okay? For you to demonstrate compliance, you need to have a privacy policy. If you don't have one, come to unwanted witness, and we help you with one. Are we together? We can help you on how to develop it, how to improve it, how to update it. That we can help you, okay? Training. You ought to train all your staff, all of them, not only DPO. All of them, train them, which is why this is a very good thing that you decided to come. We are going to give you certificates, okay? Not of merit. Participation. That is evidence to the DPO that you did what? We comply. We even went for a training by unwanted witness. Okay? But you have to have policies. Have them, please. Have them. It's mandatory. Train your staff. If you can't train them, come to unwanted witness. We can come and offer your staff what? Training. And why we offer that, this training sometimes is based on the needs. Now this is generic to help you understand, to introduce you to the law, okay? But there are those specific needs that we first assess from your organization, and then we offer you a training. Because sometimes my needs won't be the same as his, okay? But when you need them, you talk to us, okay? Keep records. When you have records kept, we talked about this, keep them, know where they are kept, have security for where they are kept, you'll be in good books. That is compliance. Then there are fines that come with non-compliance. Up to 2% of the institution's annual gross. This probably works for commercial entities, okay? But you see, the Act in the offenses by a corporation, it says, where an offense under Section 35, these are offenses that you will see, is committed by a corporation, the corporation and every officer of the corporation who knowingly and willingly authorizes or permits the contravention of this act commits an offense. Court which convicts a person under subsection 1 may, in addition to the punishment, order the corporation to pay a fine not exceeding 2% of the annual turnover. Now that is for corporations. But you see, court shall take into consideration the gravity of the offense under subsection 1 and its impact in determining the fine to impose. Hallelujah. So be very cautious during that fines when any breach happens. Court might look at the gravity. How serious was this? How grave was it? So, I want a witness. Please pay $1 billion shillings. Huh? Pay $1 billion shillings. And when you pay, we can talk. That essentially closes, right? Imprisonment. Every officer of an institution who knowingly permitted such non-compliance with the Act goes up to 10 years. You can be imprisoned. Up to 10 years. Remember I told you they don't imprison the organization, but you. Okay? 10 years in prison is long. These guys, Segirinya, and have only been there 2 years. 3? 2. But my friend, when you look at them, you might think they've been there for. Now imagine 10 years. Why you... It's tighter. Clear expression of consent. We've seen Section 7. Section 7 speaks of consent. But Section 2 defines consent. We should also know what consent means, what this act means by consent. Consent means any freely given, freely. Okay? Any freely given, specific. Frame that as well. because sometimes it's not you in office all the time. Those who come to check on your compliance, it makes it easier to show them that this is our certificate. So frame it and put it on your walls. So the Personal Data Protection Office is an independent office under the NITA U. It was operationalized in August 2021, whose mandate is to regulate, collect, the collection and processing of personal data in Uganda. So they are under NITA. It's not yet as independent as it ought to be. Our hope is that it is made an authority, okay, by its own, with its own budget. It probably could be answering to the parliament, because right now it's answering to the ED of NITA, who actually answers to the permanent secretary. Permanent secretary, prime minister, but I think it's president. Okay, the line should be prime minister, but I think it's what? President. Now, our desire is that if someone has their own budget and they answer to parliament, then they go to more of like the auditor general's office. They report to parliament where they give an annual report. Then you can be independent. You can investigate. In South Africa, Angola, and Mauritius, we've seen them actually calling police to order and actually fining them. You see, imagine NITA here calling the IGP, come here, report, kneel down, why did you do this, now pay. That's what we wish for. But so far what we have, we thank God for what we have. We hope for better, okay? The office is still small, it doesn't have so much resources, so the mandate of regulating and supervising is a bit a challenge, okay? But don't be duped by it being a challenge now. If they want you, they will come for you, okay? So you comply. Don't wait to be sought out. So registration entails submitting an application. We've seen that, okay? You can also renew. The forms are there. The purpose for which the personal data is collected for, processed amongst other things, are also required in Form 2. Those forms are under they are schedules in the regulations. Certain policies should be with you before you go for registration. Okay? You should have organization's information security policy. You should have an information policy. Now we are being practical. Get an information policy, those who have not registered. Get a data retention policy. Now, an information security policy, Chris will tell us what happens in that policy. But more of how do you protect that personal data. Okay? Then the data retention policy, how long should you keep that information? Should you keep it for 10 years? Should you keep it for 1 year? How long? Okay? Please have that. Upon registration, a data collector, processor, or controller. Now, collector, processor, controller, many times are the same. You shouldn't be confused who is a collector now, who is a processor. Because also storing it alone, storage is processing. So if you collect from beneficiaries or from donors and you put under your shelves or in your shelves, you're already processing. So you are a data collector by virtue of collecting that information, but also a data processor by virtue of doing what? Storing it. So you see there is a thin line between collecting and storage, and collecting and processing. So you should also have an annual compliance report for us who will be renewing. When you're renewing, you should have an annual compliance report. Now, in the privacy scorecard report, we encourage those who are in the commercial side of life. But even for civil society organizations, can you have a transparency report that shows how much data was collected from your organization, how it was used, how it was stored? That transparency report really goes a long way to inform your beneficiaries, your funders, that you are very, very, very serious about personal data. So this should be submitted within 90 days after the end of every financial year. The report should contain a summary of all the complaints received and the status of such complaints. Sometimes you receive complaints. For instance, if you didn't sign this form, we might receive an email from you. Hey, unwanted witness, I didn't sign your form, but I realized you're processing my data. Okay? Can you please labor to explain? Those are, so for us we have a complaint handling process and policy at unwanted witness. So should you. It's required. Okay? It's required. Training. It's mandatory. It's mandatory. Members, it is mandatory for you to train. And you should have evidence of training. Which is why this certificate we are going to give you is very, very instrumental when you're renewing. Or when they've paid you a visit to show evidence that you train. Now that is only one officer from one organization. But all the other people in your organization should be trained. There should be that evidence. Because you see, personal data is not handled by only Sempala Alan Chigozi, who is the data protection officer. Sometimes the askari will, they need to be trained on how to handle that information. Sometimes he's going to, he's picking information, then he passes by Mama Nachi, who has, by the way, what is that? Ah, these guys are asking for loans. Yeah, this one is getting a top up. Before it even goes to where the person is supposed to be going to. So you should have training. Training is important here. You should also keep record of any data protection training related to this issue. Deliver to staff. This will help to evidence your compliance. Keep a record of personal data. Please, please, as a must. Always have a record of what data is collected on your websites, on your apps, on your forms, at the reception, in the field. Have that record. And have that record kept somewhere very safe. Know who else takes that. Because when we talk to Safe Border, they claimed we didn't know CleverTap was also taking the location, data. We're like, whoa, what interesting times. That someone purchases an app or purchases trackers to work in their app, and they don't know what information is taken? Really? No, that can't be excused in court. Believe me, they will take you 10 years. Ensure you have the required contractual arrangements in place. The data protection laws require civil society organizations to put in place effective contract documentation for processing or sharing of personal data with other organizations, where you transfer data to a supplier so that they can provide you with their service. Now you see, remember the agreement, many times those who purchase trackers, who purchase websites, now it is now a practice that any platform that takes personal data, you have an agreement of what information is taken, what information is shared by who and for what purpose. There should be that agreement or contract. Keep them so that when you are required to show proof that you're not being unfair and you're not being non-transparent, you should be able to have those contracts as evidence. So where you share data with other organizations, you will need to ensure that there is a written agreement in place. Okay? So where that organization goes against the agreement, you're exonerated. They are taken on individually. Okay? So be transparent about your data processing activities. We've seen this. Okay? Be transparent. Don't say I'm giving you a fridge, Good Friday, Good Black Friday. I'm giving you a fridge. Don't you see, Robert? A fridge, 200,000. You don't know. Yet you are actually, I'm mortgaging you. Okay? So be transparent. Put in place processes to comply with data subject access requests. Because sometimes the law gives us as data subjects the right to come to your organization, and I request you, Gilbert, what information do you have on me, boss? Ah, nothing. You see? If you have information about me, you have to give me my information. It is my right to request for information. Okay? So give me that information. By the time you take to respond should also be reasonable. Why should I ask for information and you get back to me after 4 months? We are still reviewing. We are still studying. Okay? So make sure you have a legal basis for processing personal data. Having documented the type of personal data that your organization uses, you should identify a legal basis for that use. Always have a legal basis to use the information that you are using. Prepare for data breaches. These are going to happen. Prepare for them. How do you handle them? Information has leaked. The other time at the immigration office, information leaked. The immigration office has no data privacy policy. Nothing. They don't have one. You know how sensitive that information is? It leaked. They apologized and went back to their own normal days. No police said, just give us your passport. Give us your information. But trust me, with this law, people are going to pay dearly. Dearly. So have a plan. When there is a breach, and you've known about it before Sample has learned about it, the data subject, please notify the regulator and also Sample and notify him. Sample, you gave us your information, we've noticed that it leaked. Please bear with us, we are handling and you know that PR language. Okay? So know when to carry out a data protection impact assessment. We've talked about that. Treat children as vulnerable persons. Their information should really, really be kept very well. Seek guidance or consent from the parents or guardians. So, what personal data does our civil society organization hold? So these are questions that you ought to ask yourself. Make sure that your website has a pop-up that shows that privacy policy. That before someone uses your platform, they should be able to read that privacy policy, and by virtue of them continuing to read the website, to use the website or the platform, they have consented because it's a pop-up. You have to read it. Okay? Do you have a policy? Has the data been told? Has the data subject been told for what purpose? You have to give them information. They have a right under the law to be informed why you collect that data and what you're going to use it for. They have that right. You have that right. So, to ask any service provider or any data collector why they are taking your information, sirugezi-gezi, it's not being a wiseacre. It's actually you being cautious. You even have that right. Okay? Banks do usually do many of those things. They collect a lot of that data without really giving you information why they need it. I was sharing with a colleague there during lunch break that, you know, banks are a bit, they even go further, leave alone the transport apps that get your raw GPS data. Banks get your physical location where you stay when you're getting a loan. You draw a map properly. You draw a map. When you reach this junction, a mango tree, a primary school, opposite it, in that gate, this is where I stay. My land road is this. Now, bank staff have a habit of accessing those files and play data games with those files. Okay? I've been told of such games that are very dangerous. Okay? They access those files and pull out that form that has your location. So I can come for you by virtue of the information you left at the what? So for those at the bank, the law is here. Okay? Do you have signs, notices informing data subjects that you will be collecting their CCTV data? How many have CCTVs at their workplace? Huh? I know you have. But put notices, okay? Put notices and let people know that, by the way, we are collecting, okay? Tukulaba, okay? And by virtue of you being here, be notified that But that is also one way of telling them that you can even ask what information you have about you. That means that if you have CCTV, when I ask what information you have about me, go to the recordings and pull out whatever you have about me. Okay? Failure to do so, imprisonment. If you rely on consent, how do you record consent? You should really think of how you get that consent. We've talked about this in a broad way. Do you use personal data for marketing communications? Do you have the appropriate consents for marketing? The law provides for that as well. How do you use that information? Because sometimes we collect your information, like we mentioned in that consent form, and we want to keep in tabs with you. We want to give you updates of unwanted witness. We want to let you know of what new report we have released so you could be interested. Okay? So these are marketing what? So be very careful when acquiring information for purposes of marketing, which in civil society we call advocacy. So what technical and organizational measures does your organization, have in place to protect this? You need to have that. Chris is going to let us know. How do you have, what security measures do you have? You need to have those ones. We said you don't have to be sophisticated, digitally. You can be analog but very serious and deliberate about the storage of that information. If you have no computers in your workplace, buy a cupboard. Buy a cupboard or a safe, a wooden whatever, or a metallic case, put a padlock and have the key to someone. That is storage. They won't accuse you of keeping information in a wrong way. How frequently do you review and test security measures? That padlock, does it work? Huh? You keep the padlock. Does the suitcase have any leakages? No. You get it? For those who are sophisticated with computers, make sure that the computer or the server that protects, that has that information is really tight and in terms of security. What special protections do you have in place to protect special data? Do you have documentations or documented action plan or policy for dealing with data security? There should be a security, policy on how you keep that. Chris will let us know how that works. Does your organization share personal data? We mentioned that. Sometimes we collect information and we have to share it with someone else. Organizations collect information, but they have to share it with someone else. Look out for all those who get personal information from you, who we call third parties in the Act. We call them third parties. These third parties, make sure that you know them. Sometimes you don't know. You acquire an online service, which is cheap, friendly to use, but it has third parties you don't know about. It's the client who lets you know of the third party after you've been sued, okay, or complained about. So whose responsibility is it to respond to requests from data subjects? That is the DPO. You are mandated to have a DPO in your office. It's mandatory. It's not an option. So that person is responsible for the data subjects requests. Whenever you get a request, it goes to them and they process it. By the way, not all the time that I request for information from you, you're supposed to give it to me. There are procedures laid out in the regulations. Okay? There are procedures laid out properly. So no data subject should come to you and pretend as if they have the absolute right to get whatever information you have about them. There is a procedure. Okay? And where you refuse to give them, you notify the DPO. You read the regulations, okay? How does our organization or your organization for this matter deal with compliance and accountability? We've seen that. We've seen how you can apply to the DPO. It's one process. But also you personally have a policy. Train, have a DPO. Keep records. Keep records of everything. Complaints, requests, consents, those are records. Records of data you process, yeah, those are records. Always give people an opportunity to opt out if you're sending an email. If they're opting in, put a clear way they can opt out. Compliance with the data protection laws. Please ensure that the relationships you're dealing with, the donors, also come from countries or jurisdictions that have proper protection in terms of data protection, okay? Always ensure that they have that protection, because if you send information to Turkey and Turkey has no proper data protection law and you're sued, so pretty much all those we talked about, okay? You have to be very careful when you're dealing with personal data. Thank you for lending me your ears. But cautioning you, the law is vague. 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 Please try to comply. Read it. Consult the DPO always. What are the compliance issues that I need to deal with? Always. And have a record of what? Consultation. Because since it's vague, like I mentioned, such laws in their initial years are used to go after political, people that used to go after, civil society organizations that used to go after, people you don't like. As it is right now, anyone can be sued, anyone can be imprisoned, anyone can be fined, individually, but also at an organizational level. So please comply. It is mandatory to comply. You've noticed, like John Grace notified us, if you don't, there will be huge consequences. Please comply. Where you need help in terms of compliance, unwanted witness is always available. Seek our help, seek our guidance. But also you can go to the DPO, seek their guidance and ask them. The issue of compliance in the law, sometimes with the DPO, they ask for several things which you put in place. Then you comply, and they give you a certificate. But between me and you, your practices, are different. But the day you are caught off guard, even the certificate won't help you. In fact, you will be a good candidate of those who register and then don't comply. Or who comply and then don't comply. If that what makes sense. You get it, eh? So in court, even when you show your certificate of training and compliance, yet you had funny dealings, you have websites that leak out information, you are going to be held culpable. So I caution you, it's a small act. Unwanted witness is located on Semtema Road, Mengo, Apollo Sivambi Village. Reach out for numbers on our website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, everything. Please reach out to us. Let's help you comply. If you can't reach out to us, go to the DPO yourself.
Okay. First, my colleague Alan has taken you through what we call information privacy, and it's all about protecting your personal data, right? Now, when you look at information security, it's like the bigger picture. Actually, information privacy is just one part of information security. Information security goes beyond just protecting your personal data. It actually goes to protecting other sensitive data that you hold as an organization, as a person. For instance, data that is concerning things like donors' information, things to do like medical information, date of birth and all that. These are all part of what we call information security. Now, information security in a nutshell is concerning about three things. One of them is confidentiality, the other one is integrity, and the last one is availability. Now, this form what we call a triad, which is CIA. When I talk about CIA, I don't mean the other department in USA that goes after criminals. In information security, when I talk about CIA, what I want you to look at is confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that information that we are protecting. Now, when I talk about confidentiality, I talk about you as a person or an organization making sure that the data you hold is only accessed by authorized entities, not any other party. So when I talk about confidentiality in information security, it has to do with things like encryption, it has to do with things like hashing, and all that. Don't worry about these big terms, I will be explaining them one by one in the next slides. But just to give you a quick example of what encryption is, is making sure that you make the data that you want to secure unreadable to the parties that you don't want that you don't want those parties to see what you are trying to store or what you are trying to transfer. So when I talk about integrity, I talk about completeness, and I talk about accuracy of the data that you store, right? Because as an organization, you have to make sure that whatever data you collect from the people is the same data that you provide to them whenever they request for that information. So you have to make sure that this data is complete and accurate, right? And some of the examples in which you can make sure that data is, you abide by this core concept of integrity is making sure that you have security measures that actually try to make sure that this concept or this core concept is upheld. Now, if you look at availability in information security is all about making sure that the information that you store as an organization is available whenever you need it, and only accessed by the people who are supposed to access it. So in availability, I talk about things like data backups, which are very important. And data backups, that doesn't have it to be related to only information or technology. It can be making sure that you actually store hard copies of data that you think are very important organization in a secure place. So if you look at this Venn diagram, don't worry, this is not math. There are two concepts that I'm trying to explain about. The first one is privacy, and the second one is information security. Like I said, these two concepts interlink together, and if you look at the middle of this Venn diagram, you will see that both of them require you to to follow these concepts of accuracy, integrity, authorized access, but also even availability. So when these two components combine, they formulate what we call confidential personal data, or that personal data that is confidential. Actually, in the last part of this presentation, I talk about data classification. And there is one of the categories of data is what we call public data. So whenever you go out there, maybe on your Facebook or maybe on Instagram hand or any other social media platform, and you post that information, you yourself, that becomes public information. Yes, I hope I've explained it. All right, so I was saying that there is a reason why we invited you over for this data protection training, because I know that NGOs, in the way you do your work, you collect a lot of personal information. When I talk about NGOs, I'm not excluded because I also work for an NGO. So I know we collect a lot of personal data. So I drafted just a slide here that shows that a research that was done by an organization like TechSoup, and found out that 72% of NGOs that were surveyed reported that they collect data on the individuals they serve. There is no way we are going to run away from collecting data from people, because ideally that's how we work as NGOs. But how do we protect this information? How do we protect this personal data that we collect? There is also another one that was carried out by a non-profit technology network in 2017, and found out that 82% of NGOs reported that they use database to store information about their programs. So database is just like a central repository where you can store information that you collect from people. So let us look at this section from the Data Protection and Privacy Act. I know my colleague Alan talked about this a lot, but allow me to just go back to only this section 20, which talks about security measures. It states that integrity of the personal data shall be secured by adopting appropriate, reasonable, technical, and organization measures to prevent loss, damage, or unauthorized destruction and unlawful access to all unauthorized processing of personal data. Now, I want us to focus on only these two words. Actually, they are four words: appropriate, reasonable, technical, and organization measures. Now, I know, like I said, I know we store a lot of sensitive data as NGOs, but sometimes the measures that we put in place to protect this information are laughable. For instance, you find an organization that stores information to do with donors, that store information to do with the medical data of the employees, but they store it on a computer that doesn't even have a password, right? So the measures that we put in place have to be reasonable and appropriate. Now, when we talk about technical, I mean measures that like have to do with software and hardware. And when I talk about organization measures, I mean anything to do with organization policies, organization guidelines and procedures, right? Alan talked about having an information security policy. And I know when you go back, if you don't have it, make sure that you come up with it. Another kind of policy can be password management policy. It can be data retention policy. All these policies are part of what we call organization measures. Now, in the Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019, there's what they call a security principle. And the security principle is actually what I've just been talking about. Is that the principle says that you must process data securely by means of appropriate technical and organization measures. And doing this requires you to consider things like risk analysis, organization policies, and physical and technical measures. I know some of us have a background in IT, and I know someone here who can give us an example or a definition, a simple definition of what risk is. A risk is. I know volunteer to give us a simple definition of what a risk is in terms of information security. Can I get a volunteer, or should I just choose randomly? What NGO talked about has to do with risk. But risk in information security is the potential harm that may arise when someone or a malicious actor accesses personal data without authorization. So for instance, I am going to always use this example of donor information because I know organizations are always making sure that this information doesn't go out. Things to do with budget are always sensitive. So a risk, when you're storing information like donor information, it might be that someone breaks into or hacks into your computer and displays this kind of information or shares this kind of information to another organization who is your competitor. So that's what we call a risk. Or a risk can be being fined because you released someone's personal data. That is still a risk. So as an organization, you have to sit down and make sure that you come up with a risk analysis. You have to analyze the risk that the organization might face and find remedies to these risks. Yes. So I think we are going to come up with a simple activity, group activity. I know you haven't done any. So we are going to answer this question. What measures, and these measures can be technical or non-technical, can your organization put in place to protect sensitive data? So I'm going to divide you into 5 groups. Josephine, can you help me here? I'm going to divide you into 5 groups, and let us do this. You have to exchange, there are 5 tables, right? So make sure that you shift to the other table that you haven't been sitting on from morning. Yes. You can point to someone and tell that person to come and replace you on your table. So you give them the, yeah. So they are in order already. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to come up with these technical and non-technical measures. Like I said, technical measures can be things to do with hardware and software, and they can be related to having a firewall, having intrusion detection protection systems, having intrusion prevention systems, having malware, having anti-malware software and all that. And non-technical measures can be things to do with having organization policies like information security policy, password management policy, and everything to do with that. So each group is going to come up with, in groups you're going to find the person who will be the secretary and the person who will be the presenter. So I'll give you, after the 10 minutes, I'll give you 3 minutes to each group to present their answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is group 2 presenting. As you can see, we have a lot of points, but we left some for you guys to exhaust. Yeah, my name is Norman. I'm going to present the technical part, and my colleague will present the non-technical part, as Chris had said. Okay. I'm just going to dive deep into the points. One of the ways we can protect sensitive information is by encryption, by making sure you send a message in form that only the receiving party can understand, like the way NSF does. They don't use your names, they use like codes. Or you can send a letter to someone, instead of using letters, you use figures, so you know like one corresponds to A, so they can be able to form a word from it. The second point is using strong passwords. Make sure you use combination of letters and numbers and characters so that it's very hard for attackers to hack into. Also, we came up with the point of using antiviruses in order to protect you against malicious codes when attackers try to steal your sensitive information. Using firewalls, a firewall is a way of safeguarding, like shielding your organization or your information from anyone who doesn't belong to your organization. So you can use firewalls to protect your sensitive information. They seem to fall in the same category with using malware scans. So you scan your systems so that you can be able to detect those malicious codes that might attack or steal your sensitive information. Patching and updating softwares, because these tech companies always release security updates so that you can be able to protect yourself in case someone wants to steal your sensitive information. The last one is two-factor authentication, or actually multi-factor authentication. Like if you're signing into Google, you set up a way that for you to sign in, you put your password, then you also need a code that is sent to your phone to be able to access your email. That's one example. Thank you. My colleague will take you through.
Thank you, Norman. For non-technical one, is using CCTV cameras. So we can use these CCTV cameras to monitor movements. Someone can sneak into an office, so we can use these cameras to monitor their movements. Second, we look at access controls. For example, we can now give out passwords to specific people to access specific information. Then, of course, strong equipment. It depends on which computers you're using and which softwares you're using. Then, point number 4, we're looking at creating backups. These backups can either be, you can either do software or maybe hard copies. For example, you can have hard copies in your shelves, and maybe you can back your information on the cloud. Then lastly, we are looking at staff trainings. You can teach your staff on how best they can protect their data and how best the organization can deal with the information. Thank you so much.
I see we have technical points, non-technical, but I'll represent group 1, and some of the technical measures that we identified. I think my colleague from group 2 already mentioned some, like data encryption. This is basically ensuring that even though an intruder gets access to your information, they can't understand it because it's encrypted in a different language, I should say. And then another thing we identified is multi-factor authentication. This is, I'm going to give an example of organizations that collect data about vulnerable individuals, like children, like domestic violence. So assume you have a system, a software where you keep that data, or a database. That database should not be accessible to just anyone in the organization. For example, the askari should have nothing to do with that information. For example, maybe a lady who cooks for the organization would have nothing to do with that, so they shouldn't be able to log in. However, a manager in the system, like a departmental manager, may have an interest in that data and therefore can be given roles to log in and access a particular part of the information. So the whole idea is that much as you have data in the system, not everyone in the organization is entitled to that data. So that's what we mean by role-based. And then two-factor authentication is, someone asked a question that I may be standing behind someone and they log in and put their password, and then I see their password and their username and I try to log in. But what we can do, we can make it two-factor where you're required to provide a password, and then, for example, you're sent a code via your email or phone number that you have to put in for you to go ahead and log in. I believe most of us have used such systems where you don't just log in just because you have a password. And then another technical measure we identified was data encoding. This is mainly for research organizations. If you, for example, you're doing research about schools in different regions in Uganda, you can get a way to code your data. For example, Central Region, you can say all those schools will start with C, you add the other letters, and then a unique identifier. So this also ensures that if someone was not directly involved in that research, they may actually not understand what you're talking about. And then another thing was periodic data backups. For example, if you have a system, should the system go off today or a hacker has managed to enter your system, you should have a backup so that if they turn it off or delete it, you can bring it back online and you had kept your data. And this should be regular, which I believe can be automated as well. And then virtual private networks can also help in ensuring data security. And then for the non-technical measures, the first one we identified was ensuring that employees or members attached to a particular team or a project sign non-disclosure agreements. For example, you can't be running an organization that advocates for domestic violence, and every day you have victims coming to your organization, but then it's your employees who are going out there now to expose their stories. So one way you can ensure security is ensuring that each of those people sign a clear non-disclosure agreement. And then another non-technical measure we identified was limited access to information. This can be as simple as having cabinets at your physical office with strong locks to make sure that not anyone can just enter and read through the files of information you're keeping. And then we also identified biometric devices, although this might be technical. Yeah, it might be technical, but it can be a way to limit access to a particular office that might have sensitive information. And then the first, I believe the first thing we should have identified, like our presenter in the morning told us, is to ensure that as an organization you have a policy in place. Should your employee, for example, leak the data, at least you have where to start from because there is a policy that they probably signed and are aware. And then CCTV cameras, that was already mentioned. And then encouraging the use of organization emails as opposed to personal emails, and social media to communicate. In case there is any breach, this is also very easy to track because you have a trail of the communication that is happening, as opposed to employees communicating via WhatsApp, which can be deleted, but email is much easier to have a trace back. And then discouraging the use of flash disks and capacity building, which is basically what Unwanted Neatness has just offered us today. Thank you for listening.
It is one of what? of avoiding the question. The issue of VPN, even us, we are not experts in these things. We had someone who trained us on digital security, and they advised us, they discouraged us from Google, for especially when you are dealing with issues to do with clients, and they encouraged us to use a search engine called TOR. Yeah, it has a symbol of an onion. So you also just accepted and said yes, but they said it protects you from so many hacking threats, the cookies, whatsoever. So it was imposed on us. For us, we were forced to move away from our Google, and now we use that ideally that it will protect us from what. But also, as you are aware, it is illegal to use Facebook in Uganda for now. So how are you people accessing your organization Facebook pages? So when you use TOR, you realize that Facebook is automatic. It has VPN embedded. It is a search engine. It has a VPN already. So these experts are going to enlighten us more. Yeah, for us we just use them accordingly.
So VPN, what does in a nutshell, is encrypt data along the passage. By encrypting data along the passage to bypass the blockages that maybe the government imposed on you people from accessing maybe Facebook. So when it encrypts that data, it goes through that passage without those blockages, knowing that actually you are trying to access Facebook. So VPN is a technical measure because it encrypts data when it's transferring it to wherever you want to send it. But not every VPN is secure. I know most of us here have phones that have secure VPN. Which other VPN do you normally use? They have those names of secure. Thunder, right? So you find that most of these VPNs use what we call a premium model, whereby they get money or they make profits from the amount of data that you use to the amount of data that you send over their network. So I don't encourage people to use free VPNs unless it's open source. Yes, if you want to securely access a platform like Facebook, you purchase a VPN service. Yes. Or you can use these open source VPNs like Siphon. How many of us know what Siphon is? Yes. Oh, Siphon is I think it's like that. PSIPHON. It's open source and it has a free package that you can use. But VPNs that you use that all completely free have issues to do with intercepting people's data and selling it to people who are interested in behavior tracking. So you should take note of that. Can we have another group to present?
And we listed technical and non-technical measures. So we talked of having a server that's managed by an IT personnel. So this kind of limits the number of people who can access the information in an organization. Then we also considered data protection policy plus a data protection officer. We also considered a firewall that will protect unauthorized access of information. So you find some organizations have a firewall where you cannot access certain information if you're outside the building. Then we have CCTVs, then biometrics. This kind of restricts the kind of people or number of people entering like a room. Let's say if it's a server room, you have only biometrics like for 2 people. That's the people who are managing the servers or people who are in charge of the servers. Then passwords plus data encryption. So we consider that passwords can be refreshed like every 24 hours to prevent people from hacking and getting the same password. Then data encryption, which was also mentioned in a previous discussion, presenters, sorry. Then we have also data storage distribution, where you have data distributed in different servers. So just in case one either gets damaged or gets hacked, you can still be able to access your information. Then we also have non-technical organization security system, depending on what, so these are what we listed. Having perimeter walls around your organization, having a security guard that restricts the people entering. Then we have also a register. Then ID access, the physical ID, so you can be able to identify who is a visitor and who is an employee. Then lock and key for hard copy data. That is, you have, like when you have your information in hard copy format, having it locked up in a designated area. Then in case you're getting rid of important data that is hard copy, you consider burning and shredding instead of selling it to people who are selling mandazis and pancakes. Yeah, thank you.
Have also been well explained. So the technical side of it, we considered strong passwords. I think the easiest way to generate a strong password is to use a local language. So Bizimana etc is an easier way to get a strong password. The two-factor authentication is not much different from what they've explained. It's more or less like if you approve a sign-in, I'll also have to give a second approval to confirm that sign-in. The data backups, this is mostly Google Drive and whatever backing up software that you're using, OneDrive, etc. This is one of the technical aspects for protecting your data. Screen timeouts, this is not just on the phone, where you see after a certain time T, your phone will blink. So if I'm to access your phone after a certain time T, I'll not be able to access it again. So this is what we're referring to screen timeouts, and they also apply to your laptops. You'll see them covering or auto blacking out. So screen timeouts, that's the other data protection mechanism that we're looking at, so that your laptop, when it's open there, someone else cannot easily access it. Antiviruses are self-explanatory. I'll just presume, because of time, it's almost 3:30, and we are good timekeepers here at Achievers. Are you sure? The points are many, that's why I'm making the long story short. Number 6 is talking about the continuous change of passwords. So if at all you're using Bizimana today, tomorrow you can use Habierimana, etc, etc. So you continuously change the password so that no one really knows what is happening. Blurring images, I think that is also self-explanatory. You've seen some of those photos that most NGOs put out protecting the identities of, let's say, the victims who are telling their stories or videos. So blurring will be able to protect that person's identity. The use of secure Wi-Fi connections, we have had the example, I think today we saw the password is HackU. I don't know how they come up with that password. But we are presuming that the Wi-Fi here at Hotel Africana is secure, but there's someone out there who is providing this internet services to us, and now has full access to whatever websites you visited from here. So I don't know if you're not using TOR, the Onion logo search engine, you may not be necessarily safe. VPNs have also been hinted on, despite us all not being experts, but they are virtual private network protocol services. The coding aspect of it is looking at hiding the identities, like here, I think today the name tags, maybe that was not safe, you know. If I'm the son to the Kabaka, and today now I've been discovered that somehow, so I think coding is self-explanatory. So if next time maybe we used A, B, C, D, E, F, I'm 100% sure you live safer compared to exposing your name. Encryption is talking about the data encryption, where if I've sent you a file, it's also maybe password protected, or if at all that document, I think you've opened some of those documents, Excel sheets, for example, those who are keeping salaries in Excel sheet in 2023, they are protected using passwords. So that can also be a version. But we said we're living here with practical. Not everyone is going to have an automated NSSF calculator, so encryption is also one of the technical aspects. The security access protocols, they're also similar to the sign-in processes, where you'll see you're all using the same system, but maybe a manager at certain rank T is able to access certain information that the data inputters are not able to access. So those are the security access protocols that we're talking about. The 13th one is looking at the auto-deleting software. If at all it's an email, I don't know if some of you have seen those, but Gmail has that option of you send the email, someone reads it, it auto-deletes. So that's already working, I think, for most WhatsApp phones here. So you can use them in your group messages or in your messaging to the different people that you're dealing with, so that after a certain time, to maybe 24 hours, that information is erased. Then there was an argument about CCTV cameras. Personally, I think they're both technical and non-technical. You can hire someone to just sit and look at the CCTV camera. There is no technicality needed in that. And you are the one who accessed that room at a certain time. So I think that non-technical aspect of the CCTV camera can be argued about. But yes, indeed, CCTV cameras are, for the most part, technical, depending on how they store the data and the kind of angles they're able to capture us. I noticed there is one there when I was trying to leave my bag here, so I believe that our data is safe. And then the regular software updates are also self-explanatory, as someone mentioned, that the patches, security patches, are released after a certain time T. So you're encouraged to regularly update your software. I'll let Mother Nature take us through the non-technical aspects. Okay, fine. For the sake of time management, and someone mentioned gender balance, you will research more about they, them pronouns. That's how I'm representing both. The non-technical, we're looking at lockers. Of course, these are physical lockers. If you protect people's salary documents or whatever private information in lockers, that is a non-technical of going about it. The manual locking, we're looking at the locations of where the data is also being stored. If there's a data room, if maybe there are old records 5 years ago that you have been maintaining or keeping data of 5 years ago, as someone has mentioned here, that our existing laws are not clear about when to delete certain data. So even if you want to delete data of 15 years, you can't necessarily delete it because you worry about the consequences. Shredding, I think some of those advanced offices have shredders where you get documents, you input into this shredding machine, and then it becomes small pieced. I don't know if I've visually described what a shredding machine does, but I'm presuming that we all know how it functions. The fourth one is from a restriction to access, and this is also just physical, like how you'll say. Level A, maybe lower management staff are unable.
Unlike in our bufundas, where they'll break into office, get the data, expose you, and no one will even come to your rescue. That is it from us.
It happens. Pardon? We live by the grace of God. Yes.
I think our group already needed on that.
Uh-huh.
It begins with having a policy in place.
A policy in place.
Once you have a policy in place, there should be someone who should be an enforcer.
Okay. All right. What happens if, thank you so much for sharing. But the question is, what happens if you don't implement these security measures? What happens is, for instance, you might face cyber attacks or cyber threats, and these cyber threats might lead to data breaches. So quickly, I know you are all experts from what I've heard, from what you've been presenting, and actually you've presented my next slide, so thank you so much. I want us to use this problem tree here. Can someone help me remove this stand? I want us to use this problem tree here for the interest of time. Like I said, if you don't implement these security measures, what happens is normally data breaches, right? This is what happens if you don't implement security measures that we've presented here. So, I want us individually to just write, I want this group here, this column here, to write the effects of data breaches. And the other column to present, or to just write individually, the causes of data breaches. Just simply, is the problem. the roots are the causes, and the leaves of the branches are the effects. So I want this column to come up with the, did I say effects? Effects of data breaches to organization, and I want the other column to come up with the causes of data breaches generally. Yeah. So you are going to write on your sticky notes. The causes are too many. Effects are done? Yes. Okay. It looks like the causes are too many compared to the effects. I'm going to read just a few of these things, of the causes and the effects. So someone said one of the causes of data breaches is selfish personal interest and greed for money, which is true. We realize that some of the data breaches come from internal staff themselves. So this is very true. Then someone said ignorance of the effects of the causes of data breaches. Wow. Someone said stolen passwords, lack of strong systems, which is true. Another one said lack of protection policies, lack of strong passwords. So we can see passwords are very common here. Someone said absence of data protection policy, which can be also a cause. Then someone said malware, phishing, physical theft of hardware and files. So all these have to do with weak security measures that are put in place. Then someone said viruses. Viruses is part of malware. Then again he said social engineering and all that. If you look at the effects, someone said loss of funding, loss of trust, death, and damaged reputation. I'm wondering how death comes in, but the person who came up with this, can you maybe try to elaborate about death? Remember, this is we are using an organization context, not just a personal context. Yes.
Thank you so much. There's organizations.
Thank you so much for that clarification. There are a lot of effects. Actually, someone mentioned loss of life again, so that explains what you are trying to say. Then loss of jobs, integrity of the organization will be affected, or really that goes to reputation and loss of trust. So if you look at the effects, the most common ones are loss of trust and damaged reputation. So that is it all about the causes and the effects of data breaches. So from this problem tree, I can see that you know exactly what you have to do as an organization to make sure that these data breaches don't happen. So actually we've just answered this question of why your organization should worry about information security. All of the past two activities that we are carried out explain why the organization and you as a person should be worried about information security. You can see bad reputation as one of the effects, loss of trust, fines, potential legal and financial consequences, and all that. So allow me to just hint on data security controls. We have what we call preventive controls, corrective controls, and detective controls. Then in terms of categorizing them by their nature, we have physical controls, and these govern physical access. We have administrative or policy controls, and also have technical controls that govern software processes and data. So if you look at preventive controls themselves, a good example here is, imagine you are going on a trip or you are going to this training, and you keep your house, and you want to keep your house safe while you are away. What things can you do to make sure your house stays safe? So this is an example of how you can figure out these concepts. For instance, for this case of preventive controls, is as a person you have to put maybe padlocks to make sure that no one accesses your house while you're away. So in security, you can use things to do with encryption to make sure that no one get access to your data. You can use burglar proofs, you can use fences, you can even have security guards to make sure that your premises, organization premises, are not accessed without authorization. Then on terms of corrective controls, let's say someone did break into your house while you were away, you'd want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So corrective is all about making sure that a data breach doesn't happen again. So some of the things you can do in security is making sure that you have a data recovery plan, you have a business continuity plan, and any other kind of plan that makes sure that these things don't happen again. So on detective controls, using the same example of the house, let's say that someone did break into your house while you are away. You would want to know how they did it, and how would you find out. So one of the things you can do as an organization to make sure that the data breach doesn't happen again is to look at the logs for those who someone hinted about firewalls and intrusion detection systems. So these systems keep logs, or what we call history of people or systems or computers who are trying to access your local area network. So when you do that, when you look at those logs, you'll be able to identify the main cause of the data breach. So for the interest of time, I won't go through that, but I want us to do just one defined activity, and it's all about encryption. We've been talking about encryption a lot, and this is just an explanation of how encryption works. For instance, you have plain text that says, here's my private data. You can encrypt it using public key. A public key encryption, for in this case, this is an example of what they call asymmetric encryption, because it uses two keys. So what it does, it encrypts the data that is in plain text into a cipher, or what they call ciphertext. So from this illustration, you can see that the plain text was, here is my private data, but it was encrypted using a public key into a ciphertext, which doesn't make any sense if you read it right there. Then when it was reaching to the sender, sorry, the receiver, it was decrypted back to the plain text, and the person was able to see it. So if there was a middleman in between here, that middleman would only access the ciphertext and won't be able to see the real data. So that is the beauty with encryption. So let us do this final activity, and I know it is fun. This is the last one. It's about encryption. I want 5 volunteers from each table. I won't disclose how we're going to play it, but I want 5 volunteers from each table. Sorry, 1 volunteer from each table, yes. Yeah. Yes, Robert. Any, from the other table? Yes. From this table, pick a person. Yes. The achievers table. She's here. Okay, they have delegated someone. Okay. Good, good. I want a supervisor, probably my fellow staff. I think Bing will help us on this. So what is going to happen, these people are going to move out and we're going to learn about things. Then they will come back and we will try to teach them, right? So you can take them out and make sure they don't access these premises. They don't access this room, yes. Just for 5 minutes, you'll be back. It's also a good way to yes, refresh yourself. So with me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did I miss anything? Okay. F, G, H, I. How many are those? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I, J, G, J, okay. K, L. Let us first count. They have to be 13 on the first row, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, which is M. So we go to the next row, which starts with N, right? N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z, right? So the first row has 13 characters and the second one has 13. So rotate by 13 works in this way. The first letter in the first row corresponds to the first letter in the second row, right? So A is N, B is O, C is P, D is Q, and so forth, right? So we are going to encrypt this message. Pardon? Yes, exactly. Thank you for that. We are going to encrypt this message here. I love digital rights, right? So let us do this. We are going to write it as I is what? Is V. Let us first map them. Right? So I is V. Then L is Y. O is B. Then V is I. Then E is what? R. So D is Q. I is what? V. G is T. Then we have I, which is V. Then T is G. Okay. Then A is N. Then L is Y. Let us go to rights. R is E. I is V. G is H is T is G, and S is F. So I want us to write this on each table. I want us to write this message from each table. Write this message on maybe on a sticky note. Then we call the other people to just give it to them to confuse them. So the first one is V, Y, B, I. V, this is Y, B, I, R, Q, V, T, V, G, N, Y, E, V, T, U, G. And is this F? It's F. All right, are we done? Okay. The first letter.
Encrypting it to read. Chichi. Yeah, I'm decrypting. So it reads like this. We are lucky to have you on our table.
Thank you so good. So can we get someone, a volunteer who has understood that algorithm very well to try to explain everything to these people who went out for refreshments? Yes, I know the other group tried to cheat, but it's fine. Because I was so surprised how the other guy came up with dictorites. Inside that threats, eh? No, we shouldn't expect them. How did you come up with dictorites?
He cheated or not. So it is still 3:29. We're ready to finish at 3:30. And for the people that had moved out, yes, I think most people got it right. We were trying to encrypt data, and this was the methodology that we used. The person who mentioned that these were sentences, I think, not bias leaning, but I think it was the most correct answer from Achievers Group. We shall check the CCTV camera also. So these letters were written from A to M, and then we continued the alphabet. N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. I believe these are 26 characters. I haven't counted, but I think the alphabet, that's it. So there was a sentence that we were trying to encrypt, and it was, I love digital rights. So we're encrypting, converting each letter that is originally there in the original sentence into another letter that will be represented by these alternative characters. So I was being represented by V, that is why they began with V. Then LOVE was being represented by Y. Yeah, this is Y. Okay, for the L, it's Y. For the 5 that were, I think there were 5 or 6 that were not there. Then O was B. Then V was I. Then E was R. So digital, use the same procedure. D is Q, I is V, G is T, I is V, T is G, A is N, L is Y. Should I finish until the last one? Okay. So this is I love digital. We're now ending with the rights. We didn't go for the apostrophes because we had not found an alternative for them. So rights is R. This is E, I, V, G, T, H, U, T, G, and S, F. Yeah, so basically this was the assignment when you went to the hotel rooms where you were given each welcome back. But yeah, thank you very much.
Complex encryption algorithms out there that are far more complex than this. But just imagine this is a simple one, and people found difficulties trying to understand the message that we are trying to encrypt, right? So encryption works in this format. And with that, allow me to mark the end of this presentation. Thank you so much. I will invite my fellow colleagues to come and initiate the session for giving away certificates. Isaac, you're welcome.
There was something else. What was that? Yeah, those are the few that I've picked, and I want to believe that overall, yeah, this has been beneficial to all of us. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. There are some forms that have been given by my colleagues to evaluate the planning, but also generally the organization of this workshop. Please, yeah, I've seen some of you have given the feedback already. Let's fill them. Something else that I think was raised by Julie Gomo here, my mother blessed, is about follow-up. I don't know how quickly that can be done, but please feel free to reach us on any support that you want, because Councillor Allen has been mentioning it again and again during his sessions, that please contact unwanted witness to help you develop this, contact unwanted witness to help you with this. So please feel free to really reach out to us. This kind of trainings will continue, and many other trainings away from this, but in the digital right space. So we would really want to see you, for those of you who want to have data protection officers at your places of work, really getting them and supporting them, like on training. So please, yeah, as institutions, would love to hear from you on how you plan to put in action or actionalize this training that we've received today. Otherwise, I want to thank you so much. We have a small, the word that I was told to use is moderate, modest. We have a modest transport refund for you, which my colleague Josephine there will be issuing to us as we move out. Thank you so much. Oh, the certificates. Okay. Wow. Now, we have the certificates. But